Now we're going to move on and start talking about clothing for glacier mountaineering. Previously, we already talked about alpine climbing boots earlier in the video, so if you're looking for that information, just back up and take a look at that. Right now we're going to move on and talk about socks. So over here on the right-hand side, you'll see I have two pairs of either running or hiking socks, and this is what we're going to use for approaching camp. You'll notice these are merino wool, not cotton, since cotton doesn't dry that well, and sometimes your feet will be getting wet, for example, if you're crossing a small creek. And then on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see I have a pair of mountaineering socks that have a longer top on them. These could also be ski socks. This is what I'm going to use for summit day. The reason I have this sock that has a tall top on it is it covers my shin, so it reduces the likelihood of getting abrasion on my shin from the top of my mountaineering boot. You'll also notice it's not particularly thick, it's more of a medium weight sock. And the reason for that is the thick weight socks, the thicker socks, tend to squeeze your foot inside your boot, especially if you have a higher volume foot. And that means you could get blisters, or it might just make your foot colder. So medium weight is a good choice. So here is some clothing for the rest of your extremities. We're going to start up here with hats. You really want two types of hats. The first type of hat is a warm hat, and this hat or toque or a beanie, whatever you like to call it, should fit underneath the helmet and be comfortable without having a ball on top or a little button. And you want to make sure it covers your ear as well. It's nice if it has a little bit of resistance against the wind as well. You also may want a pair of gaiters. Usually gaiters are used before mid-July when the snowpack can still be relatively deep. If you're coming on a trip after, say, July 15th, then gaiters are generally optional. You can choose from two types of gaiters, those that come all the way up mid-calf or those that come up just above the ankle, and they offer a little bit less protection, but they're also a little less weight and bulk. For your hands, you want to bring two different types of gloves, and I've just laid out a couple different options here. The first type is a thin pair of softshell gloves that offers good dexterity. These you're going to be wearing most of the time, maybe in camp in the evening, maybe when you're setting up your tent. However, if you're adjusting your crampons, it's a good idea to take those off because it's going to be a lot faster to adjust your crampons or put on your harness without gloves than wearing a pair of gloves, even if they offer good dexterity. Another nice thing about softshell gloves is they're water resistant and they're wind resistant, but still much more breathable than a Gore-Tex glove. So your hand might stay drier longer in these, believe it or not, unless it's actually raining outside. Which brings me over to these. Here we have heavier weight waterproof gloves. And both of these, this is a pair of gloves, this is a pair of mittens, both of these have the option to take out an inner. So you might have an inner liner that works inside this waterproof outer, and together creates a very, very warm, wind-resistant, waterproof glove that will keep you warm higher on the mountain in cold, windy conditions, or lower on the mountain, even in the event of rain. Now we're going to talk about sun coverage for the upper part of your body. Over here we have sun hats, and we're using a simple running style hat here because a lot of other styles of caps might have a little button on top that can be uncomfortable underneath the helmet. It's not important that you have the sort of sun cap that comes all the way around with that little piece of fabric, because generally you'll also be wearing a sun hood, and the sun hood is going to do an even better job, especially in the wind, of protecting you from sun. Over here we have sunglasses, in particular glacier glasses. The big difference between sunglasses and glacier glasses is glacier glasses have some side protection that protects you from light coming in laterally off the surface of snow or a glacier. The other difference is the lenses oftentimes are either darker or sometimes they're photochromatic, which means they'll become lighter when it's darker outside so you can see more easily, and darker when it becomes brighter outside. That can be really helpful in the mountains in changing conditions. Julbo is the most popular brand of glacier glasses in the United States, so if you're looking around, that's a good brand to look for. We also have one other pair of sunglasses here. This looks a little different than what you see here, but still has good side protection. This is a pair of cocoons, and cocoons are made for people who have prescription glasses. If you wear contacts, it's never a bad idea to bring a pair of cocoons and your prescription glasses into the field, because a lot of times with really cold conditions and blowing wind and dust, you can start to have problems with your contacts or with the care of your contacts. So having that as a backup is excellent. And then over here we have a simple buff. This buff is a nice light color, which is great because it protects very well from the sun. Another great use of the buff is to use as sort of a small balaclava to protect you from wind and wind burn. It keeps you a little bit warmer. Sometimes people even use it inside their tent to mop up condensation from the tent walls. Now we're moving on to base and mid layers. So for my top, if it's going to be colder outside, a lot of times I'll be wearing a long john top. If it's warmer outside, like on my way into base camp, then maybe I'll have a short sleeved shirt, which isn't pictured here. I would go with synthetic, or I might just bring along a sun shirt or a sun hoodie like I have here. So I'll start over here with our base layer long johns. These are made out of merino wool, and I would go with a medium weight. I wouldn't go with lightweight, and I wouldn't go with heavyweight. Medium weight seems to be just about right for the temperatures we have in the mountains. I mentioned it's merino wool. I'd try to avoid things like cotton base layers, which might also have sort of a grid fleece pattern, or it might be a combination of cotton and rayon. Those typically will absorb water and keep you colder than merino wool or any other synthetic fabric. So synthetic or merino are what you're looking for, both the top and the bottom layer, and a mid-weight for your long johns. Moving down, we have a fleece top. And fleece is really nice here in the Pacific Northwest, where we have a lot of moisture either in the air or literally falling from the air onto you and onto the ground, because it dries very rapidly and will still keep you pretty warm even if it gets wet. There's two general types of fleeces that you might bring as your upper body piece. And this could be a jacket or a pullover. The general types would be like a flat-faced fleece like this, which is soft inside and out and doesn't have any particular pattern, but might be a little bit more soft or even furry on the inside. And then you have a grid fleece like this. The advantages and disadvantages are a grid fleece, which has a waffle pattern on the inside, tends to be lighter for its weight and breathe better, but not be as wind resistant or overall as warm as more of a flat fleece. But it's really personal choice whether you want to bring that more flat fleece or a grid style fleece here. And then with sun shirts, generally it's nice to have a bit of a lighter color because it's going to reflect the sun better and keep it really lightweight. If you have a sun shirt that's thicker and it's really hot outside, then you might not want to wear it, or it might be less comfortable to wear when it's actually really sunny. Now we're talking about parkas and jackets that you're going to use as your outermost layer while you're climbing up in the coldest part of the mountain, or while you're at base camp hanging out in the evening and maybe eating dinner. Generally here in the Northwest, I recommend people get synthetic fill jackets, because when it's raining outside for several days, or when you're working really hard and your jacket starts to get wet, synthetic fill is generally going to keep you warmer than down once it's wet. However, if you're on a peak like Mount Rainier, which tends to be colder overall, and because it's colder, it's not quite as wet, or if you're out in earlier season conditions, which usually means, say, before June 15th, then you might opt to go with down instead. Or if you choose to use down later in the season, just you want to care for it well, and you might want to re-waterproof the fabric if it does have a waterproof outer fabric. There's a lot of different options you can choose from, but generally what I'm choosing is something that is mid-weight. If it's really light, it might not keep you warm enough. If it's really heavy, it might keep you too warm, especially when you're hiking uphill. That's what I tend to choose. I'm a man about 5'10", but if you're bigger and stay warmer, or if you're smaller and are generally colder, then you might opt for something lighter weight or heavier weight, depending on what best fits your body and the way it behaves in an alpine environment. Here we're talking about rain jackets, rain pants, and soft-shelled pants. All three of these have some level of water resistance, but only rain jackets and rain pants are actually waterproof. Here in the Pacific Northwest, soft shells are not enough. We need to make sure that we also have the hard shells or the rain shells that cover them. When it comes to rain shells, you're choosing, or you would like to choose, a rain shell that is really lightweight. If you choose a heavier weight rain shell, or say like a ski jacket, once that thing starts to get wet, it's going to stay wet for your entire trip. It is true that a thin rain shell will probably wet out, meaning the water will pass through it eventually, but if you give it a shake and then hang it up for an hour or so inside your tent or in warmer weather, it will also dry, whereas a thicker rain shell or a ski jacket won't. When it comes to the rain bottoms or the hardshell bottoms that you're using to protect yourself against moisture, it's really nice if they have a long zipper. You know, some zippers are relatively short and that'll allow you to put on some boots that are relatively small while still keeping your rain jacket or your rain pants on, while others have a longer zipper like this that might allow you to take them off over the top of your alpine boots without the need to remove your heavy boot. In most cases, you'll still need to remove your crampon in order to take your pants off so you don't, risk damaging them with the crampon points. The other nice thing about having a zipper, especially a long one that comes up to your hip, is you can unzip the top of it. And in the event, you're hiking down Glacier, you're in your harness, and you want to vent, you can do that without stopping the whole team, finding a safe location to take off your harness to take your pants off. With the soft shell pant, this is really what we recommend as your base pant to wear for most of the time out there. A light color can be nice because it reflects light well, so UV light isn't going to penetrate and heat you up as much, but it's not essential. A lot of these are darker colors that are sold. Another nice thing about the soft shell pant is it is abrasion resistant, it's a little bit water resistant, it's very wind resistant, so it's going to keep you warmer, and often soft shell pants that are meant for the mountains have these nice thigh pockets. And when it comes to cold conditions at altitude, especially on a peak like Mount Rainier, those thigh pockets are really useful for putting snacks in so they don't freeze. Nothing's worse than trying to eat, say, like a Snickers bar that's really more like a block of ice. So soft shell pants with pockets, great idea to pick some up. If temperatures are expected to be 20 degrees Fahrenheit or below, say on your summit day, then I would also bring a few additional items. So over here, I have a pair of Hot Hands hand warmers. These are a chemical hand warmer that you shake in the air and that will warm your hands. I actually bring these almost on all the trips, but certainly on a trip where it's expected to be 20 degrees Fahrenheit or lower on summit day, I would absolutely bring one pair of those for summit day. And maybe on a peak like Mount Rainier, I'd bring one additional pair to use at camp or on the way to camp. I also have a balaclava here, not to be confused with delicious baklava. But a balaclava is going to be really nice in addition to your buff to keep you a little bit warmer on summit day, especially in the wind. A pair of ski goggles can keep this part of your face warmer, or if it's really windy and blowing snow, that can be really helpful. It also can serve as a backup to your sunglasses. Another warm layer. This could be a full, lightweight, really thin down jacket, or it could be a down or synthetic fill vest that packs well in your backpack. Is going to add warmth in just the right areas without bulking up your pack too much. And then a thermos is always a really good idea. This, I think, is a 0.7 liter thermos that's pretty lightweight. You don't necessarily want to bring a full liter thermos that's solid steel. That's going to be pretty bulky and heavy. So, half a liter to 0.7 liters is about the right size for that. And that can keep you a lot more comfortable if the temperatures are going to be cooler than you'd think. It's always a good idea to check the forecast because even though you might be going out in midsummer, it's not uncommon for there to be really cold storms that come in.